Hello internet, what's good? It's Trails. Today, we get OP. This is the first 200 days of this hardcore world where I'm getting geared up for our more fun projects that'll happen here. How OP do I get in 200 days? Let's find out. But first, this is a second channel, and if you want to help me out, then drop a like for me and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what you see. Help me get to those first 1,000 subscribers over here. This world got off to a pretty solid start. I spawned on a mountain, grabbed tools, and I spotted a village after looking around. The blacksmith was already OP with 3 pieces of iron armor. After stealing all the food and beds from the village, I killed their golem and turned him into a bucket. I went back to the spawn mountains to get iron and coal, finding a ruined portal while doing so. And by only day 2, we had full iron armor and tools. Sounds pretty OP. I started a small farm in the plains nearby with the food from the village. And then I scouted out an area to build an early game mob farm. Having early access to tons of bone meal and gunpowder would be pretty OP after all. I set it up in a river a few hundred blocks from spawn, and I made a water column to use to get up top. Even though it was early on, I wanted to set up a large storage system now, so I needed more iron for hoppers. And I thought I would start by caving, but I ended up in the rivers near the village. And as I was 20 blocks under, a pillager patrol attacked me and had me surrounded. I kinda just swam away from them, but I was still going to take them out. I crafted a shield, and a convenient nearby cow gave me milk for the bad omen. And I wanted to make sure I lured them far enough away from the village to not trigger a raid. After killing them, I found some sugarcane and smelted some of the iron. I still needed some more, so I wound up caving, where I discovered a mine shaft, which I quickly got all my iron from. I turned the sugarcane I found into a farm and did some light deforestation. And on the way back to the mob farm, I rebuilt the nether portal for later. I finished up the storage system, then started building up. I put some water at the top to get back up with if necessary, and it was very necessary because I'm bad and I didn't actually gather all of the materials for the build before starting the build. So I was constantly running back down to get more wood. I built a good amount of the spawner with dirt, which I found later was a large mistake. A few days later, I finished up the roof and we were able to start the mob killing. It only took a few minutes for the dirt to backfire because Endermen can still spawn in this thing and they take dirt blocks. After some days AFK, it was day 19 and it was time to get a modest animal farm going. What's this? A naturally generated pink sheep? Amazing! After making some babies, it was time to go deeper. I found a bastion right away and spent like 20 minutes building a solid bridge to here, even though I've only gone back here like once the whole time. Great time management, man. This was a treasure bastion, so I knew I'd be able to avoid direct contact with the brutes by going around back, and having high ground on them would help as well, letting me dump lava on them. And myself. I grabbed the gold and raided the chest from the back and went out the front once I knew there were no more brutes. RIP this gold block, by the way. With the bastion raided, I was on the hunt for a fortress, and I had to go through a fairly thick wall to get there. And then there was this ghast, which I took out like an MLG pro. I built a bridge to the fortress, a much more important bridge than the bastion one, and while I did that, I started trading some gold to the nearby piglins. And I gave them all leather boots so they'd stay trapped in the hole for eternity. 'Cause I'm a jerk. I got 11 pearls from the bastion gold, so it was blaze time. The blaze spawners were easy to get to in the fortress, and I went 11 for 17 or something on blaze raws, so I was pretty set. I went back to feed my pets real quick before building an exit portal, which landed me in a village, so you know what that means. The stronghold was actually fairly close by, and I commenced the dig down. The silverfish were really happy to see me, greeting me on my first block mined into the stronghold. I walked around the stronghold a bit, unable to find the path to the portal room. Good news though, it was at the bottom of a ravine going through the stronghold, and just outside the portal room I met a member of FaZe clan. So we made it, but I needed 12 eyes for the portal, so it was back to the nether. I actually grabbed some mushrooms for food later, and I found a warped forest to get the remaining pearls from. Once obtained, back in the overworld I got some dandelions for suspicious stew, some sugarcane for rockets, and then I was ready to tackle the ender dragon. I bridged over to the island and took down about half of the towers before manning up and decided I'm going in for a 1 cycle. It's been a while since I speedran the game, so it took me 6 beds and a sword to get the job done. Even though I had 2 beds left over, yeah, I didn't really think that through. But I took the dragon egg and headed through the gateway to one of the worst spawns imaginable. I built up a platform to go through with and used end-stone slabs to bridge over. And I went back to the overworld, so on day 32 of this world, the credits rolled. Not too shabby. But this is when we get really OP. I forgot to bring gunpowder, so I went back to the base and made 2 stacks of rockets with it. A long time later, I found my first end city, and thankfully it had a ship. And now the the sky was the limit. I let the shulkers of the ship abuse my shield a bit before I took them out. In this first city, I battled almost all the shulkers, getting the shells for a few shulker boxes. And then to get really OP, we'd have to take to speedrunning a ton of good loot from the end cities. And here's how I did it. At this point, I started using chunk base to find them just to make the process faster. How much skill is there in flying in one direction until you find an end city? Not really much. I mainly went to ship cities since those are guaranteed a couple of chests, but if there was a shipless one on my way, I checked to see if it had chest rooms. Chest rooms are easy to spot, being either 3 levels tall with a large upper level, or the rooms with a staircase on top to enter them in. Using this, I went and looted about 30 to 40 end cities in a couple of hours, getting drops for full diamond armor enchants, max swords, pickaxes, and shovels. I would have actually left sooner, but I got unlucky with looting enchantments, having to travel nearly 10,000 blocks to find a looting 3 diamond sword. Once back in the overworld, it was day 41, and I took a couple of days to organize all the loot. In the process of trying to find some flowers for dye, I found another village to steal bread from in the meantime. After organizing, I had stacks of precious ores and I think 22 elytra in total. Now that's pretty OP for 40 something days in. And on my way back to the base, I took out a second ghast in MLG fashion. I needed levels to combine all of my OP gear, so it was mob farm time. Funny part here, I took out this enderman with a waterlogged chest of all things, and I yeeted this one from the top of the spawner. It was only after I started combining swords that I realized I only had sharpness 3 on the sword, so I named it appropriately. I did some trading with piglins with the end city gold. I made myself the good boots, and then I ventured back down into the mine shaft. This time more so just exploring. I found a dungeon spider spawner in there and found a passageway to get down to the deep slate layer. I had stacks of diamonds already, yet this is the first one that I actually mined. After a couple of days gathering redstone in the mines, I unleashed it all and finally crafted the most overpowered tool of them all, the Diamond O. I needed the redstone for a railway system, which I'd use to transport the villagers to spawn. I built the railway over the next few days, then took to the best pastime in Minecraft, mining sand for a couple days.
Alright, so we got about 2.5 shulker boxes worth of sand. I think it's about time to fix my shovel though.
After some AFK leveling while eating food, I started making some glass. I used the nearby swamp to get some light blue dye for it, making the best stained glass. With this, I was going to build a villager trading hall. I outlined the area that I wanted for it, and I immediately needed more blackstone. I set it up kind of like a convenience store on the corner of an intersection, with the entranceway flexing a little bit. And by the end of day 69, nice, I was about done with the first floor of the trading hall. I spawned a bunch of zombies underneath the floor, one of them having fire resistance, which I named the Doctor. I found another village to steal food from, and then instead of crafting sticky pistons like a normal person, I decided to raid jungle temples for them. But you have to admit, there's a decent payoff from raiding jungle temples if you use chunk base to find a bunch of them. And this also got me enough redstone for my next several projects. Once I was done with temples, I found yet another village to steal food from, but somehow I ended up back near the Stronghold, so I just spent the night there. I went to the fortress real quick for some extra blaze rods since I wanted more ender chests. I then spent like the next 10 days trying to build a very basic redstone piston system, but with no help. I wanted to be able to flick a lever and have my villagers become zombies. My first version worked well with a single stall, but it wouldn't work with another right next to it. So then I made one that protruded out the back of the build. But you know, at least it worked and I would be able to cover it up. But I was going to need more blackstone to make it fit in with the build. I tried to piglin trade for it, but it's much faster just to go to the basalt delta. A couple of days later, I successfully made 7 villager zombie switches. I planned on stacking this system a few floors upward, but I never tested the design I had here, which zombies can kind of struggle with. A few days later, I put the zombie in a fence, which I thought this one zombie would be able to take care of all of these villagers. If I did it right, maybe it would have been able to, but after trial and error, I figured I'd just use multiple zombies between each villager. But getting the Doctor to his spot was a bit terrifying. That was terrifying. Once I got him situated enough, it was time to actually go and get the villagers. When dealing with villagers, here was my system. Make a box of glass over the rail system you're putting the villager on and boat the villager into the glass with about half of their head in the center. And when you get out and break the boat, they'll be confined there only to be saved by your minecart. And if they don't want to go in at first, you can elytra dive or trapdoor yourself into swim mode and nudge them until they get in. And then they'll have the time of their lives on a roller coaster you made just for them. But that joy is short-lived, since the end of the roller coaster is your villager horny jail. I accidentally got an extra villager because I thought one had died, so I accidentally kicked him out with my axe. I wanted to make sure my firstborn villager was healthy, so of course I took him to see the doctor. With the villager breeder done, I figured I'd make a rail system to take them up higher so they would be easier to maneuver. Our firstborn child became a cleric, seeing as I had plenty of rotten flesh to get emeralds from, and it only took me until day 97 to start trading with my villagers. Incredible. Actually, that's not really incredible, that's kind of trash, not gonna lie. But my next objective was to make splash potions of weakness, seeing as I was going to need to be converting these guys to and from zombies. Our second-born villager got us the mending book we needed pretty quickly, but I went to sleep and the trade changed. To make sure I could afford their asking prices, I grabbed some more rotten flesh, and the villager ended up with silk touch a few days later, so I accepted that. Both traders actually volunteered for zombification. Hey, I'm not complaining. Cured them up, and now they have good deals. The librarian accidentally became a zombie again because I didn't separate them into their stalls. I was going to need some books for all this trading, so I went and fed the cows. I leveled up our librarian so we'd be able to buy some name tags. More name tags equals more zombies, and thus I spawned in the intern. Our next villager also offered themselves for zombification, so I aptly named them the Weirdo. And this is when I realized I could just use the villager breeder to get zombie villagers to do the zombifications. Definitely beats spawning in random mobs under the base hoping that they're zombies, when in reality 90% of the time they were creepers. So thus I converted the homie, the brosif, and the office. Yeah, the last one doesn't really make sense, but it's my world, I'll do what I want. After yet another zombification, our cleric joined FaZe Clan. I did some zombie villager abuse, for which I wanted to right my wrong by healing them, but it turns out health potions actually hurt the undead, so I was just being more of a jerk than I was intending. I was ready for another librarian, but I turned them into a zombie and let them despawn accidentally. And something about this exchange ended in me promoting the brosif from a zombie slave to a trading slave. His replacement zombie was named the Nibbler. I told the next villager they would be a special guy, and you know what? That's the guy who gave me mending again. The brosif also offered mending, but I settled for Unbreaking 2 with him since he's a bro, which meant I could finally make an Unbreaking 3 mending elytra. With this newfound power, I stole the bell from the village and ripped up my old railway. I stole the bell hoping it would help my villagers restock when they're next to the zombies, but seeing as there's a zombie that's constantly one block away from them, I think they're too scared to restock. And then because all of this was actually kind of a headache, I destroyed the second floor of the zombification system I made because I felt the less zombies I had to deal with on this build, the better. But I decided it was time to build up more floors to the trading hall for later. Our next villager gave us efficiency 4, pretty solid. I zombified our boys for cheaper prices, but didn't have enough gold for their apples, so I had to get some from the nether. I definitely got tired with messing around with villagers for this long, so it's time for some more farms. First, a simple sugarcane farm. Then I enchanted my axe and diamond hoe. I forget what I wanted a beacon for at this point, but after killing 39 wither skeletons with looting 3, taking a good hour to get that many spawns, I figured wither skeleton farm was up next. After 39 wither skeletons with looting 3, you should have 2 skulls by then, but I don't think I got a single skull until after like 70 wither skeleton kills or something. That's how bad my luck was with the wither skull drops. But I gathered the materials over the next few days, and in gathering materials, I figured I'd make a stone farm. And I didn't want to look up a tutorial, so I wasted 20 minutes trying to design it myself until I gave up and watched the tutorial anyway. While mining stone, a wandering trader came along with some sick trades, but too bad I'm absolutely broke. For the wither skeleton farm, I needed turtle eggs, which I had to fly thousands of blocks to find turtles. But once I had all of my materials, I found a suitable fortress with chunk base, finding an easy bridge bastion along the way. I did have to collect some nether bricks first, but with the final material in hand, I had to find out where to build it. To have an easier time building it, reducing the chances of blazes sniping me, I decided to dig into an area of Soul Sand Valley. It was within the bounding box of the fortress, but a bit higher up than the surrounding areas of the fortress. I used the spawn-proof list design by ENX04 because putting down buttons on thousands of blocks doesn't sound like a fun time to me. And things I learned on this build: iron golems don't like zombie piglins. After finishing the fortress portion of the build, I realized I forgot a flint and steel to light my nether portals with, and going back home for that, I upgraded my helmets, which I had been neglecting. I also forgot I needed the supplies to get to the nether roof and break bedrock with. And if you can believe this, my pearl to get onto the nether roof spawned an endermite. What are the chances? Actually, I know the chances. It's a rhetorical question. After getting back up to the nether roof, then realizing I had to go back down to light the nether portal with, I almost died to my own stupidity. After lighting the portal, I realized I didn't place the turtle eggs down, which I needed for the zombie piglins, and I was already back by the fortress on the nether roof when I realized this, so I broke the bedrock down, first try single layer by the way, and dug out over the spawner to place those down. But I tried to fly back into the hole I dug, failing miserably at high speeds. And blazers were aggroed to me here, so dying was actually a possibility, but thankfully I didn't. I decided to just build a tower up in an effort to avoid a self-inflicted death. But with everything on the spawner done, I went back on the roof to finish up the roof and overworld portions of the farm. And once finished, I AFK'd for a few in-game days, collecting over a stack of skulls in the process. And I was headed for the end to use the fountain killing trick. On the way, I grabbed a bunch of bookshelves from the Stronghold, and I built the fountain killing chamber, and what do you know, I didn't even need to watch a guide for this one. Even though this was only my second time doing it, 26 nether stars later, I was out of skulls. Heading back home, a villager wandered into the nether, then he mysteriously vanished a few moments later. Now that I have beacons, now I need things to power those beacons with. So it was time for an iron farm. While collecting the materials for it, I had an awkward midnight run-in with some spiders.
Don't hit me, spider.
Ah! Shoot, 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 shoot. After a very minor heart attack, I could relax in a different bed, and the next day I start building the farm. I used a build guide by Brian, fairly easy to build, and it produces a solid amount of iron, and building it in spawn chunks means that it's going to be running no matter where you are in the overworld, meaning I didn't really need the most efficient design possible. While building this, I realized while living on mountains is kind of cool, they're very inconvenient when building things, because snow and ice kind of suck. I had to use waterlogged stairs or slabs to keep my water from freezing, and while I was building this, some pillagers came by, and actually great timing. I definitely prefer taming a villager for the iron farm, that way you don't have to deal with zombies in sunlight, but just like that, we had the Terrifier. The next several days was hopping back and forth between building villager chambers and the farm's railway systems, and then farming potatoes to make more villagers with. I used my existing rail system over the trading hall and extended it to bring them down to the farm. It's also definitely weird having plains villagers making mountain villager babies. Somehow, during the process of me getting the villagers into the iron farm, the doctor disappeared. I don't remember using another's health potion on the area, so his death is going to go down as an unexplained mystery of this world. I tended to some crops and stuff, then proceeded further with taming the pillager. I wanted to take him around the mountain over to where the old village railway was, just to have an easier time building the railway, and this involved me digging out several layers of dirt on the mountain, but hey, more materials for a future build. It could have been a lot simpler. I could have just had him follow me around the outside of the mountain, outside of the boat. Seeing as I utilized this tactic to avoid digging out more stone than I had to, but I could have just avoided it altogether if I had just thought to do that initially. But I was simultaneously loading the rest of the villagers into the farm, and once I had enough, I was ready to get the pillager in there.
Fulfill your destiny.
With the iron farm running, I turned my attention back to the traders. I zombified and cured them, having a close call with one of them. Whoa. I leveled up the librarian some more in case something happened to my one name tag guy, and a couple of days after the farm was done, I already had stacks of iron. Then it was finally time to finish up the trading hall, so I made a 4th floor and a roof. I wanted to solve the problem of snow, but I also wanted a way to get the villagers into the top floor easily, so I created a retractable redstone chimney, which would be able to sense a minecart on the track opening the chimney, which automatically closes after a few ticks. 3 hours to engineer, because as we've established, I don't like looking at tutorials if I think I can accomplish my task without it, even if a tutorial would have had me finish it a lot sooner. And instead of making this whole chimney thing, I could have just made an entrance to get onto the top floor without having to do all this redstone junk. But you know what? Retractable chimney door was a cool idea, and I'm glad I ended up doing it. Because as someone who barely understands redstone, building a redstone contraption completely on my own without a guide was a very rewarding feeling. What I wasn't satisfied with was the fact you take damage from the fall. So I wanted some honey or slime blocks, or now that I think about it, I could have used water or something, but I decided on honey blocks, so I needed a honey farm. And I found this out after I started playing again, after scripting this video. The honey blocks just didn't work. So I kind of made this honey farm for nothing, but I'm sure I'll need honey eventually. But I went and grabbed the beehives from nature, I started building it, but to finish it I actually had to go out and get more redstone, which meant back to the mine shaft. And a couple of days later it was finished. And with that done, I was ready to call it a day on these first 200 days of projects. To recap, we have an iron farm, a villager breeder, a sugarcane farm, a honey farm, a stone generator, the foundations of a 4-story villager trading hall, an overworld mob farm, a wither skeleton farm in the nether, a number of piglins trapped in hold to trade with, and an easy way to kill the Wither, which was used for 26 beacons. We have full diamond armor with max enchants, a max elytra with 21 backup elytra if I need them, max diamond tools with a max backup for a shovel and both fortune and silk touch pickaxes, and best of all, we have my redstone chimney. All things considered, we're looking pretty OP right now. Of course, we're just missing one thing. Multiple shulker boxes of totems of undying. In fact, I haven't even gotten one yet, but perhaps we'll get at least one in the next video on this hardcore world. And if you made it this far, a huge thank you to you for watching. It would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel, because this is going on the second channel, and it means I'll have done like 80 hours of total work on this, and I won't be getting paid for it. So if you could help me in the quest to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, I'd really appreciate it. But this was the foundation video of this hardcore world. Going forward, there definitely won't be 200 days to cram into a single video. At least I hope. I already have my idea for the next video on this hardcore world, and as I said, I've already started playing a bit of it. I've already played through the next 77 days of this hardcore world, and I've actually kind of wanted that to be like a lot faster, but there have been several things I've needed to build instead of what I wanted to do. But if this video does well, you can expect that relatively soon. But for now, this has been Trails, and I will catch you guys next time.